This is the Get Savvy Show, brought to you by the Reluctant Leader Academy. I'm your host, Mark Terrell, and on each episode, I'm going to help you get savvy to allow you and your business to grow. We'll be focusing on the 3 elements that lead to business success: your mindset, your processes, and your skills. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Get Savvy Show by the Reluctant Leader Academy. I'm Mark Terrell and I'm your host. And today I'm going to be joined by Mark Harmon, and we're going to be talking about why you might consider having a signature show or a show that you do regularly that highlights what you do and why you might want to do that and how you could do it also. We're going to be looking at Mark's journey, where he started. He's been doing it prolifically for a long time. And so he was an ideal person to talk about this for me, and I've known him for a long time, met him networking a long time ago, and he was probably the inspiration for the first time that I went on video and did something live. So he's someone that's inspired me, so hopefully will inspire you. So let's bring Mark on to join us.
Hello.
Hi, Mark.
How's it going?
Oh, good, thanks. I think tech's working, so that's always a good thing with any live thing. So far, so good. So we're going to be looking and talking about signature shows, and you've been doing that for a long time. But we're also going to be looking at the motivations behind what you do. But before we do that, just have a quick intro as to who you are, what you do, and where you hang out.
So as you said, we met at networking a few years ago. So a lot of my job up until the pandemic was sort of to travel around to different businesses all over the UK really, and to shoot video for them. So the way that would work, we would have like an initial meeting and work out their video strategy, what kind of videos they needed to make, who they wanted to target, and how we'd make those videos to do that. And also over the past year, and maybe a little bit before that, it's been about putting together regular shows for businesses. So that includes podcasts, that includes video series, and getting people to watch those, and also repurposing that content as well. So that can mean pre-recorded videos and pre-recorded shows. It also means live shows as well. So I produce a number of live shows for different people, and I'm really impressed by your setup as well. So it looks really cool.
Well, as with anything, you have to get inspired by somebody, and actually, YouTube's been really useful understanding how all this stuff works. And we're going to be talking about technology and how that's changed over time and allow us to do these sorts of things. Um, but before we get stuck in too much into the topic, the first thing we do on the show is I look at my guests, motivators. Now, you have completed a motivational map, and these are on the screen now your top 3 motivators. The top one there is spirit. So that's about freedom, autonomy, making your own decisions, doing things your own way. The defender is about security, predictability, having an amount of predictability so you sort of know what's happening and it's sort of solid. And thirdly, the searcher, making a difference, doing something that's worthwhile and meaningful and for you. So how do you see these 3 sort of showing up in what you do then, Mark?
Yeah, I'm not surprised by any of them really. I was looking at the ones that were like the opposite. I wasn't surprised by those either. So I was quite, yeah, I agreed with what it said.
Mm-hmm.
They're seeking freedom and independence, making their decisions. I think that comes hand in hand with being self-employed and running your own business. Um, and that definitely speaks very loudly to me. Seeking security, predictability and stability. I think like with like the pandemic and everything like that, although it's been terrifying at times, once you sort of get into it, it's sort of, yeah, it's pretty predictable. And now coming out of it, it's a little bit scary because it's a bit unpredictable again. So I'm a bit sort of worried about how things will change again.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely going into it, I was like really, really anxious about how everything would change. So yeah, that doesn't having a stable life is definitely something that I would sort of attain, aspire to attain. And then the searcher, yeah, what I love doing, what I do. So like seeking meaning from making a difference and providing worthwhile things. I think that sort of, yeah, that ticks a box as well because I always wanted to do something that I enjoyed doing. I didn't want to do a job or work in a place where I didn't enjoy it. And I think that's the most important thing with work. Sort of money comes second a little bit. Like, as long as you're all right for money, it's all right. But I think the main thing is that you're enjoying it and you feel like, yeah, this is what I want to be doing.
Yeah, that's interesting what you said there. I mean, the spirit motivator tends to be quite strong in entrepreneurs because they like to do their own thing and don't like to be told what to do. Defender is an interesting one. It's come up a few times with a few guests, and that's tends to be around you just want to know what's happening. So there's a little bit of sort of structure in what you do, and it's not like up in the air all the time. And the searcher, well, yeah, if you don't, doing something that really sort of is making a difference, you feel that you're making a difference by helping people, and getting the feedback is important with regards to that. So it's interesting, and I'm not surprised what you just said. And I think the interesting thing is that you've got the spirit and searcher are very much around change, so embracing change and liking change. Defender is probably a bit the opposite, and actually doesn't particularly like change. So there's a little bit of a sort of conflict there, which sometimes might crop up, and especially what you just already mentioned about, well, what's the next change? Are we going back to what it was like, or are we going back to something completely new again? Is it going to be another sort of change curve that we're going to have to sort of deal with in the next few months as we come out of hopefully this sort of pandemic situation, and hopefully get back to some sort of normality.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Right. Okay. Well, it's always interesting, and thanks for sharing that. It's always something that's I do a lot of work with, and it's an interesting thing to sort of talk about and connect to what our business does. That's the important thing. Okay, so we're going to be talking about not so much just video, but actually a signature show. Now you have. You can tell us about your signature show and when you started.
Okay, so my signature show is called The Video Show. It's a very what's the word? Imaginative name for the show, because literally all I talk about is loads of different aspects of video. And I started it in mid to late 2015. So I'm on episode today. I'm at midday. I'm doing episode 335. And it's changed like throughout the years. I think that's important, is that your show changes throughout the years. So firstly, when I first started doing it was just me answering questions, and I was just sort of sat in a room answering a question. And then it sort of changed over time, where it became like more of a vlog, and I was sort of going around showing behind the scenes stuff. And then it was sort of me pulling questions out of a box and answering loads of questions. And then as we went into the pandemic, I got into like live video became a lot more attainable to what I wanted it to be, rather than just sort of plopping a phone down and going live. I wanted to look a little bit more like your show looks, where it feels like it's more produced.
Yeah, and say production. Yeah,
production value has gone right up. So it's nice that I've got to that point now where each week at the moment I tackle a subject and then really go through and like delve in deep of what that means. So last week it was going into how to get guests for your podcast, and the week before that it was looking into how Zoom calls changed, and if we will continue to do Zoom calls over like face-to-face meetings, and really go into detail with that. So it's really interesting to see how that works and how that's developed over time. But I think by having that, it's really helped me develop relationships with people. I've met people at trade events and expos and even at networking where they recognize me because of the show. I've never met them before, but that's when you know your show's working, when people are like, you're the guy who does video, and you have no idea who they are. And that's really cool when that starts happening. And it does take a lot of time to do that. It does take a lot of commitment. As I said, I've been doing this nearly 6 years now, where it's been pretty much every week there's been a show in some respects. But by having that commitment, it really does help you sort of build those relationships. People will realize you know what you're talking about, and it also shows that you're sticking around for the long term as well. And I think that's important.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I started with podcasting, which is obviously just audio. And one of my top motivators is creator. So I don't like to stick at the same thing for too long. So I like to sort of evolve and do something different. So when I sort of saw the technology that was available with Ecamm, I use for the software I use, and Restream, which allows you to sort of go over multiple social media platforms, I thought, wow, this is like crying out to sort of adapt and bring the podcast into a live situation, which is, if anybody's listened to my podcast, will see the format is very similar, but obviously it's in a live situation, and obviously there's other sort of challenges going on. But I think at this point, I think what will be interesting. I think we should do a bit of reminiscing, Mark, and let's take you back. Let's take you back to that first episode, that first time you queued up and thought, let's do a video. So let's. I'm just going to play. I won't listen to all of it, but let's see what you were talking about in that day, whenever it was.
A lot of people ask me how to get the most out of video. So we put together a short series answering these questions. But what we want from you is to ask us the questions about video, the questions that are holding you back from making video and making video work for your business. The first question we've got is, where should I share my videos? Ask yourself what you want to see as a result of sharing your video. You probably know about YouTube. It's a huge website purely for sharing videos, but the videos that do really well on YouTube are the ones that are either entertaining or educational, or there's some that are both.
So that was interesting, I thought, because you were talking about sharing in those days, because we couldn't really do what we're doing now, do sort of go live, because it was possible, but just too costly. And so I think that's worth thinking about how that's changed over time, how you distribute your content.
Yeah. So I think like the barrier to entry as the video is lowered, so it's very easy to make videos now, and it's quite obvious, I think, where to share them, and then you work out which works best for you. I think I'll probably go on later to say in that video, share it in loads of places to start with, and then sort of keep doing what works best for you. So like that changes over time. It's quite weird to look at that video now and see there's things that I would change from that. Like I wouldn't be wearing that shirt now. The sound probably wasn't particularly good, so I've developed like technically how that would look. But that's the whole point of making those videos. It's sort of starting somewhere, starting with what you've got, and then developing it over time so that you can sort of slowly improve it. But the main thing is to get started. So as you said, you were doing a podcast, and then you turned into a live show, and then this, like, we don't know how technology is going to change over the next few years. So like 5-10 years time, you could be doing something totally different. But the point is just to get started and to develop. So although that first video for me might be extremely cringy, it's important to get started somewhere and then build off that.
I think that's a really important message, because if you're going to do anything, and I don't want to listen back to my first episodes of my podcast because they are, like you say, cringeworthy, and you think, oh, why was I? You count up the ums and ahs, and we're far from perfect now, but it's one of those things that you just got to just practice. You're never going to get it right by just doing it in your head. You've just got to do it, and just see what happens, learn from it. Like anything, it's like public speaking, I guess, is the same way. You've got to just do it, learn from your mistakes, get some help, but also just do it.
Like, I say this a lot in my videos, but like if you pick up little things that you can improve on each time, after like 5 videos, after 10 videos, after 20 videos, you'll notice huge improvements as you go. And this is something I was doing with live video as well, because my first live video was only about a year ago, but after each one I would sit down and watch it, and I would have like a checklist of what went well, like sound sync, was that good, use of graphics, use of screen share, and I would mark it out of 10, and then I would look at how I could improve it, and that really helped me make huge improvements as I went along. So from the first one to the 10th one, there was massive differences. But that was really by being really strict on myself and really looking at it and really trying to improve it.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point too, when you say about improvement. I think this is a good time to bring in the famous red sofa, which I've sat on. I don't know whether. Let's have a quick watch this one.
And welcome to episode 96 of the video show, the show where we answer your questions that you have about video. I've put them all in this box, sealed shut, so that local pests and animals can't get at them, I guess. So today's question is, this is tense. What's the best editing software?
So what I notice when I'm looking back on those is that the production is obviously, as you go on, is increased. Obviously, you've got that signature tune. When did that come about? When did that sort of get introduced into the show?
So that was probably like 2016, and that was from a friend of mine who is he's a local musician. He now works with one of the companies I work with, and I just was on a plane back from Tenerife, and I was listening to it on my iPod. And I thought, this is really good. So I texted him afterwards and said, can I use that as the theme song? And he was like, yeah, it's fine, as long as you tell people about it. So his name's Ian Easton. You can listen to it on Spotify, and that song is called The Number 7. So have a listen. It's really good.
Yeah.
So I just thought I wanted to put like I still use this theme tune now, so it's like 5 years later. But having that is sort of really like a signature theme song for the show. I still use that font. I don't use the exact same opening credits. It's slightly different now, but the font is still there, and the fire explosions are still there. But I think that really looks quite cool. And that changes over time as well. I'm sure that will change as I go into years and years in the future. But by having that sort of little hook as you go in, it helps people realize, oh yeah, this is a video show. Like you have your intro as well. I thought that cool as well, so people will start to recognize it. Oh yeah, that's the Get Savvy show. So people will start to realize that. And I try and have, with each of the shows I produce, is to have a really distinctive sound to it and a distinctive look to it as well. So, the logo and the theme song are quite important as you go through it, and it really does help it stand out from just if you were just sort of walking along, just talking on your camera on your phone. It gives the production value is a lot higher.
Yeah. Yeah, I think absolutely right. And when you've got all this technology, not you want to get carried away with it, but you can make it into some sort of production. And it's hard the first time because you have to set it all up. But once you set it up, it's just a matter of just changing for each episode, just minor tweaks. Like before we came on today, I spent a bit of time obviously just changing the names from the previous guests and all that sort of stuff, which takes a matter of probably 10 minutes max. Whereas the first time you do it, you think, gosh, this is quite heavy, and you've got to learn software and all that sort of stuff. I'm aware that you can get sort of really bogged down with this stuff, but we've got to remember why we do it, and we're going to go cover that before we cover why we'd want to do this. Obviously, what I'm doing and what you're doing as a signature show. Let's just one more episode of, which is I believe. The live one.
Hello and welcome to episode 334 of the video show. And we are live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. So if you're watching this, don't forget to ask me questions.
So, that was a bit bizarre, wasn't it? Seeing you next door to each other, and are you really live? No, you're not live.
That was like a week ago. That one.
So let's talk about the differences when you do go live as opposed to recording something. Then what do you see as the biggest difference and the dynamics that's going on there?
So there's huge differences. Like, I'm very comfortable talking to the camera when it's all pre-recorded, and over the last year, I've slowly become more comfortable talking on live. And that's a really good thing to do because it does throw you in the deep end. But I think you do need to be a bit more laid back when you're live, because things will go wrong. Like my battery on my camera could go out at any minute. So you've got to be aware that things can go wrong. So that if things do go wrong, don't sweat it too much. Don't get upset. Don't let it get to you. Just sort of relax with it and make a joke of it, because things will go wrong, and just sort of be prepared for that. And also when you sort of forgetting things to say with a pre-recorded show, you can just sort of stop the camera and then start again and sort of make a cut, and then it will look like it's seamless. But with a live show, if you forget what you're going to say, it's very easy to get very upset very quickly. So just be a bit more relaxed when you're live. Feel free to sort of fill the air with just something random to say if you can't think of anything. So at the moment, my go-to thing is just to talk about my hair because it's ridiculously long, because obviously we can't get haircuts. So if I'm such a fellow to say, look at that. I start talking about my hair, or just sort of grab something on my desk and start just talking about that, because you've got to be a bit more relaxed, because a lot more things can go wrong. But as I said, like slowly, I've got more and more used to it as the years gone on, and that just comes with practice.
So let's talk about why anybody might want to think about doing a live, or not necessarily live, but a regular show like I do and what you do. What do you see as the biggest benefit?
The biggest benefit is that people will start to recognize you and your business, and they'll start to realize that you know what you're talking about. So that, and also like when you meet people, like say if you met someone at the start of the year and then you didn't see them in person until the end of the year, if you didn't make a show and if they didn't see this show throughout the year, they might not even remember who you are. But if they've even seen like one episode or like clips of bits of episodes, they'll start to remember you. So it's a really good way for people to actually remember you and realize who you are. So like some people will connect with me on LinkedIn and they'll remember who I am because of my videos, but like I haven't seen any of their stuff, so I'll probably forget, because I meet so many people through like networking and through like online networking and just going around and about all these places. So it's a really great way to be remembered first and foremost, I think. And then it's a great way to show that you know what you're talking about, that your expertise, to build business relationships with people, to get referrals off the back of it, and just to do what you need to do and like build your business off the back of it. And I think video has been a huge part of what I do, and it's had to be because at the end of the day, that's what I make videos for people, so I really need to be doing it.
Well, you've got to walk the walk and show that you're going to do what you say you're going to tell other people to do. There's no point in just preaching something that you've never been done before, or never been seen doing before, I should say. So I think that's a valid point. But I think if we talk about it in a leadership perspective, sometimes we all need to be shown the way. And back in the day when we first met, we came up and I just said, look, I know I need to do it, and you came up with a plan as to how we can start to get over those sort of fears of getting it wrong and all those sort of things, which and it's interesting what you just said there about when you're going live, you just got to realise that it might just go wrong at any point, and nothing's gonna, it's not to get too upset about it. It's bound to happen at some point, which I've had a couple of times. So it's interesting how when we start something, it then morphs into something else. So and you've alluded to the fact that people notice you. But what about sort of the type of work you do? Has it affected the type of work you do with regards to what you started out doing and what you do now?
Definitely. I think the videos for me, the videos that I make, I make the videos I make for the video show are the kind of videos I want to make for other people. And I think the best way for me to keep making the videos I want to make is to make those videos myself for me. And then other people will come along and say, oh yeah, I want something like that. And I think that's a good way of doing it. And going back to what you said about when you first came to me, it's really nice to see, like, when you first started, you were very, very nervous, I think, on camera. And then over the past year, seeing you do live videos and seeing how good it looks as well, and seeing how good you are on camera, it's really nice to see. And I've messaged you a few times throughout the year just saying it looks really cool. So well done to you as well for doing that.
Yeah, well, that's the message here is that Mark and I started out, we were far from perfect. You can see our first attempts on our YouTube channels, and they are far from perfect. And we probably cringe when we look back at them now, but actually every step, every video, every live is a learning cycle, isn't it? And you add to what you know, and it makes you feel a bit more at ease every time. Even when things go wrong, you think, well, I cope with that. I'm still alive. And
stuff I made last month, and I think, that could have been better.
Yeah.
So it's a learning curve.
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole point of this was hopefully to inspire you, if you're watching this, if you catch this on a replay, either on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter even, to hopefully inspire you and think about how you could create a show around what you do. So my inspiration was, so my main work is about leadership, motivation, and I just wanted to help people get a bit more savvy, and that's what sort of came up with, well, the Get Savvy show. That sounds about right, and it seems to sort of people remember it. And you mentioned about you did pay. I suppose you did think too much about your show as to but it says what it does on the tin. It's a bit Ron Seal like, isn't it? It is the video show, and the thing with it is that you've created a massive back catalogue now of, you said 365. So literally someone can watch your content every day for the next year and never get bored because it's always different.
Yeah, it's nice to look back at that, and it is a little bit ego driven. That it's like, oh, I'm now on 335, and it's like, it's nice to say that, but that's mainly for me. But the main thing is, like, I can look back at those videos and take clips from that, and then post that as a small little video, like on LinkedIn, and repurpose that content. So I don't need to constantly make new stuff all the time. I can. That's a really cool thing about making stuff over time as well. You can repurpose it into other bits of content as well. And then also, like, as time goes on, you could go back to something from like 2015 and say, I was right back then. Gary Vaynerchuk does it a lot of, like, he goes back to like 2008. He's like, yeah, I was right back then about Facebook. But it's nice to sort of go back and like repurpose old things, and it just saves you time.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Vaynerchuk, because he made his name doing a regular show about wine, didn't he, back in the day? So that's an interesting connection. But I think we should think about what stops people continuing. Now, you've been very consistent, you say, but there must have been times when you thought, oh no, have I really got to do another show? And if that happens, what do you sort of do about that?
I think the main thing that stopped me doing that is, like, as I said, like before, like the ego thing of like, oh, I'm on 335 now. So having that numbered has helped me keep doing it, because I've got like a number in my head that I want to get to, and then it's like, oh, I'll get to a higher number than that. So I think that has helped me carry on doing it, is by numbering it. So no one else really cares how many I've done, but for me, it's like, oh yeah, I've got to keep doing it, because it looks, every number, it's like, it looks better. So then when I get to like episode 400, it's like, oh, 400 is a nice big round number. No one else cares, but for me, it's like, oh yeah. And now when I get to 500, and then it's like, that's helped me keep going. But like, there's times when like you feel like you're posting it and nobody's watching it, and that's hard. But I think the main thing is, like, you just got to keep doing it, keep plugging away, because like it sort of ebbs and flows. Sometimes people will watch it, sometimes people won't. But you just got to keep doing it, keep plugging away, and then like you'll slowly build up this audience for it.
Yeah. And so, any tips you've got about getting people to watch on replay? Of anything that's sort of cropped up in your experience?
At the moment, what I do is I take the whole live show. So it's probably about anywhere between 10 and 30 minutes per show, and I chop it down into little clips of like 60 seconds or so, and then I post those onto LinkedIn, onto Facebook, not onto YouTube, but LinkedIn and Facebook mainly. And then I say, to watch the full show, go to my website, and then you can watch the downloaded version of the full show on my website, and then they can sign up for like email updates, so they'll be updated via email when the next live show is going out. But that's a really good way of getting people into your list, is by making the repurposed content that points people to your website where your show is based.
Yeah, what I found is it's getting the URL of the original show and then sharing that later on, maybe a week later. That seems to work, and a lot of my guests have done that. I've got some really good views later on after the event, so on replays. And it's important to remember that it might be live now, and there's some people that might interact on the live show, but actually the content's there for people to catch up. Probably about a week on LinkedIn, I've noticed, and sort of maybe a day or so on the other platforms. That's what I found anyway.
Cool.
Right, and sadly, Mark, our time is running out, so we need to wrap up. So before you leave us, do you want to just remind us where to find us and get in contact with you?
Okay, so connect with me directly on LinkedIn. Just type in Mark Harmon or Mark Harmon Redbook Productions, and you'll find me. And then also you can see my show on my website, redbookproductions.co.uk/the-video-show.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you for your time today, Mark. Really enjoyed it. There's bound to be things that we should have covered which we haven't, but that's the nature of the show. But hopefully we've covered enough for people to understand why you might want to do a signature show, the benefits of it, and also how to get started, what stops you getting started, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. Hopefully it comes across that we both enjoy what we do. That's the important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Great stuff. Thanks, Mark. I will catch up with you very soon. So thank you to Mark for joining us today. He's been prolific, and I've definitely been a mentor of mine with regards to videos over the time. Check out his stuff when I've want some inspiration. So check out his stuff on YouTube and his website, and you'll get loads of value from that, I'm sure. So if you want to understand about motivations, we talked about motivators and the importance of understanding what motivates you, especially if you're running your own business, then check out my website, thereluctantleader.academy, where you'll see there's a course that I've created called How to Stay Energized at Work, which includes a motivational map. And if you take the plus version, you can also have a coaching session with me. And if you use coupon code LinkedIn or Facebook, you'll get 25% off that course. So So if that's interested you, and I highly recommend it, especially if you're in business or maybe going through a bit of change or contemplating some change in the future, that course is ideal for that purpose. So thank you to Russ and Isaac who joined us live. Sorry we couldn't interact with you. Appreciate your comments. Hope you enjoyed the content, and share with anybody you think might find it useful. And until the next episode of the Get Savvy Show, I bid you farewell and have a great day, and see you next time.